The Mortal Kombat 1 DLC packs are well underway, and according to the data miner Interloco and YouTuber Dynasty, we are going to get more DLC packs in the future. So I wanted to share my thoughts on what guest fighters could be coming soon before they inevitably get leaked. As everyone knows, just because something is leaked doesn't mean it will happen, so take all my thoughts with a grain of salt. Ash Williams was planned for Mortal Kombat 11, but ultimately, for some reason, never came to the game, which still gets me fired up today.
Leave me alone! Ah!
Anyways, I wanted to talk about who realistically will be in the game, so stay tuned until the end to find out who my final pick will be. So far in this game, we have Omni-Man, Homelander, Peacemaker, Ghostface, Conan the Barbarian, and T-1000. So far, pretty solid in my opinion. Let's see what else I can cook up. I'll start with some rumored characters. These characters were either rumored about a long time ago or have possibly been hinted at or mentioned by Ed Boon and the developers on Twitter. Ed Boon is the creator of Mortal Kombat, for those who don't know. First, we have the characters that Ed Boon mentioned on Twitter. Earlier this year in 2024, Ed Boon, the creator of Mortal Kombat, asked if they were going to remake a guest pack genre, who would they pick? And the winner of the poll was a horror pack. This pack, according to the tweet, would have included Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, Leatherface, plus one new character. Now, personally, I think that this is most likely to happen. These fighters are well known and would draw in many eyes. I think that the new was always planned to be Ghostface, who was just recently added, but I'm holding out hope that it is actually a character I will talk about later. Ed Boon also put out this image talking about the horror guests who have and have not been in Mortal Kombat yet, so we shall see if he adds anything, if this adds any validity to this in the future. Personally, I think this is my best scenario, especially if the new character is who I think it will be, but we'll talk more about that later. Next, we have an actual rumor, and I do want to mention that I am not aware where this leak came from, and most of these ideas have been dispersed, but I thought it was interesting enough to talk about. This pack was set to include the guest fighters of Harley Quinn, Deathstroke, and Doomslayer. First, I want to talk about the DC characters. Personally, I don't think that DC heroes or villains should be included. They've already had their own fighting game with the Injustice series, and are not very interesting characters in these games. The exception to this is definitely Peacemaker, because you have actual things to reference with the TV show, and more interesting powers, but also he's played by John Cena, and you need him in this game, because there's no way you'd have enough money to pay him for those Injustice games. Plus, I hate anything Harley Quinn, so it helps too. On the other hand, the Doomslayer from the Doom games would be a perfect fighter in this game. I mean, just look at this man. Have you ever seen a more kick-butt character ever? Like, seriously, look at this guy. His most famous line is literally rip and tear. Now, how likely are these three? For the DC characters, I think it is decent just because they wouldn't need to go through any legal tape to acquire them. So, unfortunately, I think it may happen. As for Doomslayer, I think that it could happen, but I wouldn't bet much on it. MK loves their matchups, and there really isn't any guest matchups in this game for him. Now, you could argue that the MK fighters themselves are the matchup, with most of them being some form of demon or magical being, which is the type of enemies he usually fights. Even then, I don't think that the general public would see it that way. Now, before I get to some ideas of fighters who have not been leaked, I wanted to talk about two fighters who I don't think will be in the game. All of these are for different reasons, so let's just get into it. The first is the Crow. He's another comic book character who was highly requested as a fighter in this game. I'd like to believe that at some point during development, he was considered to be in this game, but when the remake that came out a few months ago critically and commercially bombed harder than Morbius, which is saying something, I think we can definitely count him out. Next is Deadpool and Wolverine. Both are highly requested for this game, and because they're owned by Disney, I don't think it will happen. But if there was ever a time to include either of them, or even both, this would absolutely be the time. Deadpool and Wolverine made $1.3 billion in theaters and is the biggest R-rated movie of all time. So after that success, if I'm Ed Boon, I am absolutely putting down as much money as needed to put these men in this game. Do I think it will happen? No. But I think it's either now or never for them. Next, we have Venom. I think he's in a similar boat to Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that he is far less likely than the other two. He'd be great in this game, but if they can't get Deadpool after he made $1 billion, there's no way we will get Venom in this game after his most recent movie flopped. Although, he would fit great into the game. Next, we have Chucky and Invincible. And I'm going to group these together for one reason. And they will be quick because Ed Boon has put out a tweet asking what cameo fighters they should include, and these two easily won. So safe to say that they will be cameos if they get in at all. Next, we have somewhat of an odd pick with John Wick. I say this because according to rumors, Ed Boon tried to get John Wick in this game, but Keanu Reeves refused. I think this is very odd because while I do think it would have been great to have his voice and likeness to make this character far better, I still think that they could have made him work with a voice actor instead, like they did with the Terminator in Mortal Kombat 11. It's also odd because unless somewhere in his contract it states that he has the right to refuse this, John Wick is a character, and he's owned by Lionsgate, not Keanu Reeves himself, even though he does play him. It's not like John Cena being asked to be in a video game. He has the right to say no because the person is himself. But anyways, I still don't think it will happen because John Wick 4 came out last year, and I would assume that they want to put him in. I assume they'd want to put him out at the same time to coincide with that. But now, with them releasing 2 years later, this would not make sense. So if he comes out, I think he'll be in the next game when John Wick 5 comes out, if it does. I don't keep up with this franchise much, so I wouldn't know. Personally, I would love to see him in the game, especially because we already have Peacemaker because their dialogue will be very cool. Having a pretty normal assassin guy in a world filled with sorcerers, ninjas, and demons will be a pretty interesting character. Next is Kratos. I'm very torn on this one. On one hand, Kratos has already been in Mortal Kombat 9 as an exclusive fighter on the PlayStation 3, so bringing him back would feel kind of odd. On the other hand, people have brought up that he would fight very differently from before, not only because of the unique gameplay style between Mortal Kombat 9 and 1, but also because of the changes Kratos himself has gone through since 2011. He is wiser, he has many more weapons like an axe, and even has a son now. Personally, I would prefer him over some new characters like anyone from DC, except maybe either Scarecrow or Bane, because I like them. But I think that if we're going to bring back past guest characters, I don't think he'd be my first choice. Now we have my final two that I don't think will get in, with Art the Clown and Pennywise. Now I don't think either will be in for one simple reason. They will be saved for the next game. Every Mortal Kombat needs at least one good guest matchup. In MKX, we had Predator versus Alien and Jason versus Leatherface, which was originally supposed to be Michael Myers. In MK11, we'd have a three-way matchup in Terminator versus Rambo versus RoboCop. We're also supposed to have an interesting matchup between Spawn, who is a supernatural character who actually did get in the game, and Ash Williams, because he frequently fights supernatural creatures and was cut. And even now, in MK1, we have Omni-Man with Omni-Man versus Homelander and sort of T-1000 versus Conan. I say this because T-1000 was an Arnold villain and Conan is Arnold. So I think that in MK13 or MK2 or whatever they decide to call it, that Pennywise versus Art the Clown will be one of the matchups. Both are very fitting for these games and popular enough to be included, but I feel like Art is too recent to be included, with the third movie, Terrifier 3, just recently coming out and a fourth on its way. I want him to have more time to be integrated into pop culture before I would include him if I'm the developers. I do think that both could be included and should be included here, but I think that their time will come. And now for the verse of the day. Matthew 5:4 says, "Blessed are those that mourn, for they will be comforted." Now the next couple are, in my opinion, the most likely fighters to be included. I'll also throw in a few ideas of my own as well. Now remember when I said that there was supposed to be a new fighter for the Horror Combat Pack? Well, I think that if you have Jason, Freddy, Leatherface, Ghostface, and potentially even Chucky as a cameo, and even a Terminator for good measure, then the final big name in horror, not included so far, is Michael Myers. If this alleged horror pack is real, and the new fighter was not Ghostface, then we need Michael Myers in this game more than ever. A horror fighting game is something that I am sure every fighting game fan and even movie fans have thought of before. And if you get all those horror movie legends in one game with a great gameplay of Mortal Kombat 1 and the M rating, then this is the closest you'll ever get to that horror game. Seriously, at this point, the only real names you'd be missing would be Ash Williams, Pinhead, and Jigsaw. And even then, I think that Ash Williams is still possible because there's no way that they've got any work done on him for Mortal Kombat 11, and the other two can be cameos if they really want to put him in. Personally, this is my favorite scenario. I do have some personal picks for later, but if this comes true, then I'll be very happy and ready to say that this will be the best Mortal Kombat game ever. Next is the Shredder, and I think that is actually pretty likely. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were included in Injustice 2 as guests, and putting their greatest adversary in Mortal Kombat would be very cool. Plus, he already fits in with not only the whole ninja aesthetic that NK has, but also the violent comic book characters theme of the first Kombat pack. Personally, I'd be okay with it. I just don't love him anyways, and I feel like he wouldn't stand out much amongst the rest of the Ninja cast, in my opinion. That's what I love so much about the guests in these games. They fight nothing like the other normal people in this game or any other. When you hear Sub-Zero, you know how he will fight. Ice balls, ice clone, slide, and other types of new ice moves they come up with. While there's nothing wrong with that, you know what to expect. With the guest characters, you never know what to expect, and I feel like the Shredder moveset would be very predictable. No offense to the team though, I'm sure they would do a great job. Now we move on to the Capcom section, and I think that they have a lot of characters who would fit well, but we'll stick with three. Nemesis, Dante, and M. Bison. First we have Nemesis from the Resident Evil franchise. He'd be a very heavy fighter, but could play very interestingly because of his unique powers. Simply put, he's a living manifestation of a bioweapon with an assault cannon on his arm. I don't think that he'd be in here just because there are better choices, and he does not talk either. Next is Dante from Devil May Cry. I think that he's very possible because his games are already M for mature, and he has tons of unique weapons like, and I'm not kidding, a motorcycle chainsaw, and his interactions with the cast would be very funny. Finally, we have M. Bison from Street Fighter. The reason I'm picking him and not Akuma or Ryu is that I think that if Ryu was included, then he will be a cameo, and Akuma fights very similarly to Ryu, so I don't think that they would want to double up on the same style of move by making him a base roster character. So I think that Bison would be very cool. They could include his new Street Fighter 6 look to match the style of Mortal Kombat's more dreary atmosphere more, and recently, Street Fighter has been more lenient with lending their fighters to other games. Ryu is already in Smash Bros, although I know that happened a while ago, and Ken and Chun-Li will be in the new Fatal Fury game that comes out next year, so another fighter being in MK is not as crazy as it seems. Plus, the director of Street Fighter 6 stated that he wanted Sub-Zero in Street Fighter 6, so maybe they could make a swap, who knows. I also wanted to mention Kazuya Mishima from Tekken, and I find this very unlikely. The developers Bandai Namco have never talked with NetherRealm, to my knowledge, about any type of collaboration before, and just for reference, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter have tried to collaborate before, but nothing has come of it before. Maybe it could be a cameo, but we shall see. Now my last two characters are very personal picks. I highly doubt that either will get into this game, or any after, but it's nice to dream once in a while. The first is Vilgax from Ben 10. I think that's something that Mortal Kombat should do, is take a character from a usually 10 plus or so property and put them in this game for the people who are now grown up and can enjoy these characters in a more adult setting. Here's what I mean. Vilgax is one of the most powerful and brutal cartoon characters I have ever seen. He is basically Ben 10's equivalent to Thanos or Darkseid. So much so that he literally killed the entire universe's equivalent of the Justice League. But to make him different, he does have interesting powers. He has super strength, healing, armor, laser eyes, an army of drones, and can even turn his arms into tentacles. Now this will never happen, even though he absolutely could conquer the entire Mortal Kombat universe without a sweat. I just think they is still from a franchise that is too skewed towards a younger audience to be able to, knock a dude's block off, if you catch my drift. Especially after the recent reboot in the late 2010s. I will say though that they do actually own the character because he was created by Cartoon Network, and his voice actor Steve Blum would be pretty easily to get in this game because, fun fact, he actually voiced Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat X and maybe a few others, I'm not sure. And he has some fantastic lines for Vilgax in these shows.
At last we meet, the being that has caused me so much trouble. Who are you? I am Vilgax, and I have come for the Omnitrix.
Now I have one more, and this one is not going to happen either, but if it did, it would be fire. I want Bigfoot in Mortal Kombat. And to be clear, not one from any TV show or movie. I just mean a normal, voiceless, animal Bigfoot. The idea of a horrifying monster stumbling into the Mortal Kombat universe and just wreaking havoc because he's hungry and not even because he wants to fight, he only wants food, would be awesome. This obviously would never happen because they would need to draw in people to buy him, but even still, it would be awesome. So, the time has come. Which 3 will I pick? Before I spill it, I will say that if we move past the next DLC pack, I found out that there will be more fighters coming even after that, then I might do a sequel to this video. If I get 20 likes on this video, then I'll think about it. And I also want to say that I'm picking the 3 based off how they added 3 spots on both sides of the roster screen when the most recent pack came out. But without further ado, my realistic final 3 will be the Shredder, Doomslayer, and Michael Myers. Shredder would continue the violent comic book fighters theme. Doomslayer would tease the next game's theme of a video game characters like Dante, Nemesis, and Akuma, and Michael Myers would give Ghostface a rival, as well as finally bringing him into the tournament and giving the pack far more value. So that's my list. What do you think? Who would you like to see? And do you think my picks are realistic? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.